I'm Yo-Yo.
And I'm Katia. Welcome to our podcast.
Each week we learn from the experts about all things women's health and happiness.
We are two very normal, imperfect women.
Navigating this crazy thing called life.
And trying to stay happy and healthy while we do it. So, grab a cuppa.
Or tidy away that pile of laundry.
And enjoy our discoveries. Hello and welcome.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 68.
Yes, and this is our final series too. Are we saying that?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. This is our final guest of series 2.
Yes.
And then after that we'll have a little series recap.
Yep.
But and I thought it was a really nice way of the last guest.
Yeah.
I think it was a really nice final chat.
Yes, because we had a lovely guest who we actually have had before.
Yeah, so Nicky Bevan was one of our first guests in episode 5. So back in the day.
Nearly a year to go to the date when this is released.
It really is, isn't it?
She'll have been recording with us.
Yeah, it was almost a year to the date.
Yeah, that she would have been on recording with us. So, and then she was released in the early new year. So yeah, it was nice to have her back and nice to chat about something different.
Yeah. So Nicky Bevan is a life coach and she specialises in mind and emotional management for working mums, although she does actually coach lots of men as well. So her passion is working mums, but she coaches men and women and people who are not mums.
And people.
And people. Just people.
Just people. Yes, she believes that as parents, it's our job to become the adults that we want our child to be. So it starts with us.
Yeah, to be the example, to manage our own emotions, to manage them in a way that we are happy.
Yeah.
And we can model true contentment and happiness for our children, and that's a gift
that we can give them. Yeah, and I think, it's quite an interesting thing to read, to listen to, because as somebody who doesn't feel that way, a lot of the time, like that, I am giving that back. So actually, this is a good episode. But anyway, it's a good episode just to think about how you deal with life. Yeah,
even if you haven't got children, it's how you deal with stress and how do you want to live.
And how do you want to show up?
How do you want to show up? Yeah.
But yes.
But Nicky is a fully certified life and weight loss coach. We don't actually talk about weight loss at all in this episode. We may in future episodes.
Talk about like sugar cravings she means and how you depend on food in certain emotional situations. I think that's what she talks about.
But this particular episode, we're really honing in on creating more time.
Time management.
Yeah. Yes. So, time management always sounds a bit dry, but I like the creating more time.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know.
I like time management. You're like, I like it to be creating more time. I'm like,
but
say what it is on the tin.
Yeah, so she really dives into the pitfalls people get into.
Yeah.
And how you can time can be zapped from your life and what you can do to reclaim that.
Yeah, and she also it's like calling yourself out on that. But that doesn't work. And actually,
I'll just do that.
And it's how you feel about this job. So it's changing your mindset. And also she calls out on all that, like, but what if this happens and that happens? And she's like, no, actually, if you do it, it does actually work.
Yeah, but a little word of caution as well. I mean, she says it very clearly at the end of this episode. It's not about being perfect. Mm-hmm. So if you listen to this episode and you get a little bit like, oh, my life's too crazy, this is not possible for me.
Oh, it's possible for everyone, I think.
Try and get rid of that expectation. Even if you try these strategies, it doesn't have to be perfect.
No, you get pits and falls are going to come and things, but it's more about, as she says, and she does say, like, recognizing that and just trying to catch yourself. Because all of this is big. It's not going to happen overnight. Yeah,
it's practice, creating awareness of how you think about the time that you have, the jobs that you do, whether you have to please everyone. But I think, but we're getting into spoiler territory. So before we say everything that she mentioned, I think we'll get to the episode.
Yes, everyone enjoy. We hope you found it useful.
Yeah, enjoy. Hello, Nicky. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me again. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, welcome back. It's so lovely to have you again.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You were already a guest on episode 5 back in the day when we were just starting out. And now you're back again for round 2. Really, really excited. Going to focus on a slightly different topic, aren't we?
Yeah, we are today. And right now it's getting towards in November, nearly Christmas time, and then heading into New Year. So lots to unpack.
Lots to talk about. So today you're a life coach, and you focus on mind management, emotional management. So we know that you like to focus a little bit on how people can create more time in their life as well. So can you tell us maybe with a top line summary first, and then we can go into more detail, but top line summary, what do you see are the main pitfalls that people fall into when it comes to filling their time and things that make them stressed or perhaps give them the perception that they have no time?
Yes. Great question. So it's really fascinating how I think most people can't say no. So we end up saying yes to something because we don't want to say no. We don't want to be uncomfortable saying no in the moment. So we say yes to something, and then we end up being really uncomfortable for hours doing the thing that we don't want to do. Keep it. So saying no, people pleasing, trying to make everybody happy. And then I think there's this boredom that we don't ever want to feel. So then we mindlessly scroll. And actually, it's really interesting when you do the math. We might need a calculator, but I think I can remember the facts. Is that I reckon most people probably mindlessly scroll in some way for about 2 hours a day. It's probably even more if you actually looked at it. It probably is even more. But and I'm talking like maybe Netflix or checking your inbox when you're avoiding the task. And you think, well, 2 hours a day for 7 days of a week, I can do that math. That's 14 hours, right? But if you add that times that by 52, so the amount of weeks we have in a year, that's 728 hours of mindless activity.
Crazy.
And we're all sat here going, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. There's too much to do. I don't have enough time. So the angle that I come at it is, first of all, awareness. Like, we have to be aware of how we're kind of spending our time from a place of real compassion and fascination. This is not a judgment exercise. We can go into more of that in a minute. And then it's about going, right, how do I very deliberately want to spend my time? And then it's about looking at your relationship with yourself, which may seem a bit off, but there's loads of time management processes out in the world. You can Google it. There's loads of theories, loads of applications. But if your relationship with you isn't strong enough, or your self-confidence isn't quite strong enough, you're not going to be able to follow the plan that you put in place, or the strategy that you want to follow, the process that you want to follow. So that's kind of then where I come in. It's like, right, okay, here's a process. I've got my own time management process that I teach my clients, but even if they have another process that they want to use, right, what is actually stopping you following that process? Let's deal with that. And usually it's like a lack of self-confidence or people-pleasing tendencies, or they're the two biggest things. Not being able to say no to someone, being willing to receive help. Most of us don't want to do. So
that's a big one. The not saying no, isn't it? Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, how, if people are listening to this and they're like, oh, that's me. What could you tell those people as like a little starter tip? How people can start to say no to things.
Yeah, because I'll say no. I will say yes because I'm a people pleaser. So it's not saying no, it's the people pleasing bit. And then also, if I do say no, the guilt then I feel after having said no.
Yeah, it haunts you afterwards.
It haunts me,
yeah. Can I ask what it is about the guilt? What creates the guilt? Do you mind sharing? What is it about this saying no?
Because it could be like I've said no because maybe I want to do something for myself, like I want to do some exercise, or I've said I can't because I've already put something in, when if I'd done something the other, I don't know, it's the fact that I feel like I'm not there for somebody. Okay. I suppose that's what it is. It's like I'm not, it's a people pleasing thing. It's like I feel guilty because I wasn't there for them when they asked me, and I said no because I might be doing something else, or I might be doing something maybe slightly selfish, like exercise.
Yeah, which is not selfish.
But do you know what it feels like? So I could have done it, but it's nothing like, if I say no and it's not like a thing like I can't get out of the other thing, but I've already got something in. If I could change it around, sometimes I'm like, oh no, because I need to do that other thing too, and then I feel guilt because maybe if I'd pushed myself, I could have gone out and done the other thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like, a boundary, I suppose. But
Yes, I'm glad you used that word, because it is a boundary. It's about going, right, okay, what am I willing to do? What aren't I willing to do? How do I want to spend my time? And the thing is in life, like there are things, I want to be a nice human being, right? So when my neighbor asks me if I can feed her cat, I'm not a cat fan. I don't really like cats. But because I want to be a nice human in the world, I'm like, yes, of course, I'll feed your cats. But there's kind of two things to that point, is that you have to this is like a muscle, right? So if you go to the gym and you try and pick up the strong, like the heaviest muscle, like the heaviest weight first, you're not going to be able to do it. But if you go and start with the light weights, you can do it. So starting to say no to maybe just, I don't know, something really minor that doesn't create all that guilt afterwards, and just start small with the no's. I'm struggling to find an example, but I'll think of one in a minute. Or maybe, saying no to the neighbour's cat, for example. And then what's interesting is your brain is going to go into this cycle of shoulding. So it's this kind of shoulding, this expectation on who we should be as a friend, as a neighbour, as a daughter, as a whatever relationship it is. But ultimately, we do actually get to decide. And guilt is from a thought, I've done something wrong. And if you look at the history of humanity, we were designed to be part of a pack. We actually needed to be part of a pack in order to survive and evolve as a human race. So guilt is actually a survival mechanism, because it makes you consider, right, do I need to stay part of this pack? So people pleasing is the same, because if people don't like me, they might kick me out the pack, and then my life is over. Like I would literally perish being on my own. So these traits have come from like survival requirements back in our tribal caveman days. So you kind of get to ask yourself, right, is this person that I'm saying no to, first of all, are they a significant tribe member? So is this no life threatening? And honestly, most of the time it isn't. Like, we don't live in a world now where no's are threatening. But it's just having that compassion with your inner voice and that primitive part of our brain that is freaking out because it literally thinks that you saying no and displeasing someone is going to be life threatening. That's totally normal. Nothing to worry about. And actually, it's so much more beneficial for me and the type of person I want to be and how I want to show up as a mum to do my exercise. It's a celebration of my body to do my exercise. And right now, that is a priority. Should it be something else, maybe I would reconsider. So it's kind of understanding where the people pleasing and that avoid that, like that fear of saying no comes from. Made sense when we lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. And we just don't do that anymore.
I think it's also no feels very blunt. You say no. I always feel like no, but I'll explain why I'm saying no.
Yeah.
Here's my life story.
Yeah. Here's everything.
Saying no.
But that's okay. And then at least you're asked if it's necessary.
Yeah.
You're still saying no.
I can't, but this is why.
It's tough. I think maybe thinking of the opportunity cost of doing that favor. I mean, I don't think any of us is saying that you should never do people any favors.
Exactly.
I think definitely do people favors and be nice. But if the opportunity cost of doing that is your only chance that day to get a bit of exercise, or that week to go,
or to spend time with the children, or like
to have some quality
whatever
family
it is,
time,
like
something really important that you would have to miss. That's okay to choose for.
Yeah, or you don't have to have any justification at all. You just don't want to do that thing.
Yeah,
true.
That's true.
And that's okay too. Like there are some things that I don't want to do. Like this, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. But ask me for the next party, or don't ask me again. Like maybe I would, but right now it's a no, thank you. There's a really good book on this actually by Sarah Knight. She's called
she's the one that has like the word, like it's like, how not to give a shit, or something like that, or something like how not to give a fuck, or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, how not to give a fuck.
Yeah.
She does one as well called Fuck No. So it's basically all about how to say no, and it's really interesting. And she goes into the different types of why, like the reasons why we say no, and the different personality traits. And it's a really interesting book to read. But it's just, we don't actually have to justify our reasons why we don't want to do something. And it just could because you just don't want to. And what's fascinating is we're like, oh my gosh, no, I can't possibly say no. It's really uncomfortable to say no. So I don't want to be uncomfortable. So we say yes to something that might take hours or days or weeks of our time. So we would rather be uncomfortable for like long periods of time doing something we don't want to do than 5 minutes of discomfort saying no. So it's not necessarily about avoiding discomfort. Either route is going to create a discomfort. You just get to choose where you would rather be uncomfortable. Would you rather be uncomfortable letting down a family member or your children or yourself versus letting down, like saying no to someone and letting someone down that wasn't maybe so significant? So it either way is going to require a level of discomfort. But if you keep saying yes to things that you don't want to do, that's going to keep you stuck in a spiral of that discomfort. Whereas learning how to say no and setting boundaries and honoring boundaries, and that can be done from a place of absolute love, that's actually going to grow you as a person, and you're going to end up living a life that you actually like living rather than the life here where you're spinning in the people pleasing.
A chosen life.
That's very true, that you know, you can go along and like your life just be full of things, uncomfortable things that you've said yes to, where it's just like, why have I done this?
And you're just on autopilot, just kind of going from one thing to another that you haven't actually chosen to do.
Yeah, and it's one of my clients. We were actually talking about sugar, but she showed, which I've taken this phrase now and I'm using it, but she started it as the positive no. So actually I'm going to say no. So she was talking about sugar. I'm going to say no to this chocolate bar now in the moment and have that discomfort, but I'm saying yes to the future body that I want to do that I want to have. And so the same applies with time management. I'm going to say no to this activity and be uncomfortable in that moment, or that request, or maybe that person not being that comfortable with me saying no, because people won't, if you're used to saying yes, people won't like it when you start saying no, and that's fine too. But actually that saying that positive no here enables me to say yes to something else in the future. And it's when you kind of spin it on its head that way, that's usually a nicer way to look at it.
Yeah.
And also, it might not even that you say no. Like, I mean, if you say yes all the time and suddenly people are like, oh, she said no. But then some people might be like, oh, okay, fine. It's just a chance I was asking you. It's fine or not.
It could surprise you.
So your no may have been like, oh yeah, that's fine.
It's a big deal for you to say no.
Yeah, and then they're like,
that's fine.
Cool.
And you must have people. I know I can think of a couple of people in my that I know, and they say yes to something and they come along and do it, but you kind of get this feeling they're doing it a bit like they're obligated and they don't really want to be doing it, and it just feels not quite right. And you're like, you could have just said no. Like, why don't you just? And so then you never really trust that they actually want to do it. Like we must all know people like this, but you never then quite know if they actually want to help you or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think for me, at least the people that know me well know that if I say yes to something, it's because I really want to do it, because they know that I'll say no if I don't want to. But it is a skill. It's a skill that we get to learn, and then we have to practice. It doesn't come naturally for most humans because of that need to be part of a tribe.
Also, do you think there's a cultural element to it? Because I'm thinking that you are quite an unusual English person saying all of this, because from my perspective, coming from a Dutch background, that was one of the main culture differences I have felt.
Was it?
In the kind of the Dutch say no more willingly.
Yeah.
Shame-free and like guilt-free.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more politeness in English society. And I think the difficulty is I've found with asking people stuff, and it's like a yes. I'm like, is that really
is it
a
though?
Yes?
Yeah.
Like, is that like a begrudging yes? Or is it like a yes?
Yeah. You don't know where you stand, do you? You don't know where you stand.
There's also things like text messaging, like, yes, of course. You know, it's hard to get along with like internet now. Of like, if someone's really feeling it or not. If someone said you in front and they're like, you'd get straight away that they're not sure or they're saying it. But like having that non-tonal communication. And also for years we were taught like you should say yes to everything, because all opportunities are if you say yes. So I remember like there was a thing like 10 years ago. It was like, say yes because you never know where life. You should never say no to anything because you might be getting rid of like it takes you life will take you other places if you say no to things.
Like almost like toxic positivity.
Yeah,
it's like say yes to everything.
The world's your oyster. Say yes, and you don't know where life's take you. And actually, it's like I'm too tired to say.
Yeah, if you say yes, you become everything. You become burnt out.
Well, exactly. Especially if it's not really stuff you want to do.
Exactly.
At your own kind of negative effect, if you like. And I think, like, we know if you're able to kind of come out of your logical, programmed, like societal brain and go down into your body, your intuition will guide you whether this is to me, it should be a fuck yes or a fuck no answer. And if it's a fuck yes, right, I'm in, let's go, let's do it. I'm all in, 100% focused and grateful for the opportunity and all the things. But if it's a fuck no, I'm like, thanks for the invite, but not this time. I'll come again. And so I really do believe that once we come out of our shoulding head, as in I should help, I should want to do it, I think is another one that I know I do with myself. And this applies sometimes to family and kids as well. Like I think I should want to sit and play computer games with my boys. Do I? No. So and so it can apply to so many different areas of our life, but ultimately it comes down to an expectation, doesn't it? How society perceives us to be, and then how we think how we expect ourselves to be.
Absolutely. Have you got any more client examples maybe of people who have managed to use strategies such as saying no and other things as well, that were really, really strapped for time, that are now much more relaxed and not feeling so stressed?
Well, it's probably every single client that I work with, because we all believe we don't have enough time, or I've got too much to do, I'm not going to get it done. And when we have that thought, of course, we're going to experience overwhelm. We're going to experience stress. We're going to feel overwhelmed, and we're going to go into panic mode. And when we're in panic mode, because the brain is perceiving this to-do list or these tasks or this request to be life-threatening, we can't access our higher wisdom. We can't access our knowledge. So we're down in our survival state, and all our body wants to do is fight, freeze, or run. Like that's our primitive instinct. So I just love to acknowledge that, first of all. Like, we have to get used to acknowledging that it's uncomfortable to say no, that we don't set any boundaries, that we really believe we don't have enough time. Just acknowledge that for a second and breathe. And then that brings us down, like, everything's just a lot calmer. And then we have a choice. So I call it my ABC method, right? So acknowledge, breathe, and then choose. And actually, when you look at it from a very calm, grounded space, well, a couple of things are going to happen. Factually, you actually don't have enough time. Okay, so if that were true, if you've got 10 tasks that are going to take you 10 hours and you've only got 5 hours, you're not going to get all of those tasks done, which is, I'll go on to my process in a second, because it's a very straightforward process that your listeners can write down, come back to. But you actually get it. So I think, like, so a very day-to-day perspective is like the clothes washing, folding and put it away. Like, my brain's like, oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Again. So my brain's like, oh my God, it's going to take me hours to fold the washing. So I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. I actually get my boys to do it now, but I didn't. Yes. I used to do it, put it off and put it off. And then it takes like 10 minutes. And you're like, if I'd have just a couple of days ago sucked it up and done those 10 minutes, I wouldn't have spent days spinning in overwhelm. So overwhelm is a real indulgent emotion. It doesn't actually create any forward momentum. It doesn't produce anything. It just keeps us spinning in a shitty emotion. So when we actually calm all of that down and we look at the facts and we're like, right, okay, these are the actual things that I have to get done. This is what has to be done this week. This is the time each thing is going to take me. I'm allocating that time on my calendar. And I know that when that time comes, I'm probably not going to want to do it. That's the mind management piece. I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to get it done. Life is so much calmer. Like, so then you actually have like I find myself going, oh my God, like I've got half an hour. What am I actually going to do with my time? Because I haven't, it's so unusual to have a calm mind. But actually when you sit down, and it is lovely to do this with someone, if you have a life coach or you have a friend that's quite good at no bullshit and isn't going to fuel your I don't have time fire. It's a really powerful exercise. But there might be times when you look at your to-do list and actually the fact is the math tells you don't have enough time. Okay, well, there's no drama needed now. You get to decide. Am I going to make time to do it? So do I need to shift something else or delete something else? Can I delete this task? Like, is it actually essential? Maybe can I delegate it? Can I give it to someone else? And that's where the help comes in. Like, can I actually ask my children to do it? Can I ask my husband to do it? Can I, maybe pay someone to do it? I have a cleaner now, which I'm very grateful for because I don't want to spend time cleaning my house. So I pay someone to clean my house. So when we drop that expectation that we are the ones that has to do everything, then we actually have so much more control. We can be so much calmer. And then you get so much more done in that space anyway, because you're focused, you're on it, you're efficient. So everything gets done quicker anyways. So but that is literally every person that I coach kind of has this belief, I've got too much to do. Because what happens when you feel overwhelmed, what do? We scroll on social media, we spend time in the snack cupboard, we talk to our mates, oh my God, I've got so much to do. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe how much I've got to do. And then if you're at work, you might be, and my manager just gave me something else to do. Can you believe it? Now and so we walk around with our to-do list and then we're like, right. We write ourselves, do you do this? I'm like, right. And you've got your list and you're like, right. But you don't actually do anything. And then you end up sticking the kettle on. So we end up wasting the time that we do have because we're so consumed up in our heads with this reality.
I will say the thing about setting a time, like 10 minutes of laundry, you have to be realistic and maybe put a buffer in. Because I'm very good at scheduling.
And you're a time optimist, aren't you?
Yeah. So today,
okay. Yes.
I had to get into bath, meet somebody, come back. And I didn't make time for lunch. And then my first thing ran over. So I had 10 minutes to get home, eat something, and then get out the door and change. Right. And it was like, I have not scheduled the time in. But I said yes to all the other things. And, it was great. I did it. But it was also like, you did not make time for lunch and food, like essentials. So when I set a schedule, the one thing I need to do is add like half an hour onto everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, this is a skill. Yeah. So we overestimate, we underestimate. But let me, you were about to ask me something.
No, I was going to say, I have heard, maybe it was even from you in our first interview with you or someone else, that it was the optimism kind of tendency. It's like you are such a time optimist and my husband is exactly the same. Like he'll be like, we'll get all of that done in that time. And I'm like, maybe
double the time. So I've been trying to redecorate his room in 4 days, like wallpaper for the first time, strip it all, prime it all, in like 3 full days and 4 nights. And then my husband was like, you're mental. You're never going to get that done. I was like, why is it taking so long?
So I guess getting to know your own type. Yeah. If you know you are a time optimist or if you go the other way.
Yes.
We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We'd love to help more women out there, so please subscribe, rate and review, which helps more people find us. And share this episode with any friends who you think will enjoy it too. Thank you. And without further ado, here's the rest of the episode.
And this is where, that's it.
Who knows?
But that's kind of where the learning comes in, right? And if you're willing to evaluate. So shall I tell you what
yes, please.
The process, and then we'll apply it to, like you just said, Katya, about the journey. So basically, you choose an hour once a week, and that is your planning hour. So this is like putting before you set off on a trip, you're putting the into the GPS, you're putting the address of where you want to go. Because if you don't spend that time doing that, if you don't spend time planning the journey, you could turn the wrong way, go and get lost, and all that. It takes longer. So we want to give ourselves time. So I do this around 12 o'clock on a Monday, because that's generally when I start my working week. But you can do it any time during the week. It doesn't matter. But in that hour, this is what we're going to do. You're going to make a list of all the things that you have to do. This is the one and only time I think a a to-do list is acceptable. So you write down everything that you're going to do. You prioritize it. So what have I got to do this week? What could be done next week? What could be done 3 weeks, for example? Then you put a time against each of those tasks. Now, there would be things that are already in your calendar, like, interviews or meetings or clients or, school runs and things like that. And I would always highly recommend having an online calendar, just because it's so much easier to, and it's kind of sad giving up your paper copy if you are. I used to love my paper diary, but it's so much easier for recurrent moving things around if it's online. So then once you've got your priorities and your timings, then you go to your calendar and you're like, right, okay, I need to be in Bath at 2:00. How long does it take me to get to Bath? Well, it takes about half an hour normally, but I'll allow some more time for traffic. Okay, so I'm going to allow myself 40 minutes or an hour to drive to Bath. So you put in your calendar, time block, drive to Bath. And then you put in the time that you're at that meeting. And then you need to drive back. Okay, so then it's like, I'll give myself an hour to drive back, but then I need to have lunch. So you start to build up this picture of all the things that you need to do. And if you're at work, for example, and you have a meeting and there are tasks, you're going to have tasks off the back of that meeting, allocate time after that meeting to sit down and make the notes and plan when you're going to put those tasks in. And then what you do is you throw away your list once all your tasks are in your calendar. And then you just learn to follow the calendar. And that's where the skill comes in. That's where your relationship with you comes in. That's where you're learning. And then so each week looking back and going, okay, what worked and what didn't work that week? Well, I didn't give myself time for lunch. Okay. Well, actually, I would always suggest having your free time in your calendar is the first thing you calendarize. Time for yourself, because then when your brain's going, I don't have enough time, I can't get to da. You're like, no, it's fine, it's all in the calendar. And so that's kind of the process that I use, that I take my clients through, and it's really simple, but it is, again, a skill that we have to learn and tweak and evaluate. So like you had the perfect opportunity to learn that this week, that okay, I obviously completely underestimate how much I can do. So next time I'm just going to give myself a little bit longer. So definitely for travel time, I would always allocate longer, because you have no idea what's going to happen when you leave the door. But you don't really want to do that too much for like tasks that you like. If you're going to write a social media post, or you're going to do the washing, for example, because the longer you give yourself, you will take that time to do. So there are some things where you just want to zone in, focus, let's go. And so, apparently research says it takes about 10 minutes for the brain to actually focus down onto that task. So expect if you're doing like a written task or something you need to focus on, expect your brain to be wandering. It's going to go, oh, well, what about this? And oh, what about that? And you just bring it back and bring it back. Yeah. And then usually people go to me, well, what about the things that only actually take 5 minutes? I'm like, okay, so put half an hour in your calendar and do all the 5-minute tasks in that half an hour. Like it doesn't have to be difficult. Yeah. But overwhelm doesn't ever actually move us forward. And overwhelm is only ever there because I really believe I've got too much to do. So we just break it down. Yeah. Break it down, stick it in your calendar. On the calendar.
Nice. I like that. And also about not allocating too long to some tasks. Social media posts are a very good example. Yeah. I don't particularly enjoy making things for social media, but I have to do it. And so actually it helps me to have a compressed time window. Yeah. So I'm like, because my motivation's low, I'm like easily, I'll do something else. But no, I literally have this 15-minute time window to do 3 posts. I'm going to zoom, get it done. I think for me, for that kind of thing, if it's something that's a bit longer creative process that I'm going to be motivated for, I probably allow myself more time.
Yeah, and definitely one of the ones where, I need to set the timer, but I also then do something. One of those classic examples of like start the laundry, go into one room to put it down. Then I'm in that room being like, oh, I'll just do this one now. And I come out the room like, what was I doing before? Yeah. Those jokey adverts. I find myself doing that more and more, coming out with something else, going downstairs, being like, where did I start this trail of like?
Where did I? Yeah. And I think that's the thought to catch. I'll just As soon as now you'll be aware of it now. You just sort of hear it in your brain, and you'll go, oh, just that's the point to catch yourself. Yeah. Hang on a minute. Let's come back to what we were doing.
It's really important, as you said, that you mentioned free time and allocating free time, because that's where people then also start to get overwhelmed because their calendars are so full of stuff.
Yeah.
And like they're craving a bit of like just downtime and just a cup of tea or
reading.
And they end up doing it late at night when they should really be doing something else, but actually having it in the day.
Yeah.
Like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Whenever fits it. Everybody's lives are slightly different. We've all got slightly different rhythms, haven't we? And whatever works for people. And you know, for some people, it might be scrolling on social media. It might be just sitting mindlessly watching Netflix. If that's what someone wants to do, brilliant. Plan it in. Give yourself time to scroll on TikTok for an hour. Love it, and don't beat yourself up for it. But don't kind of sit there scrolling for hours and hours and hours and then beat yourself up for doing that when there are other things that you actually want to be doing. We do always have a choice. So I'm like, if you want to, like every Friday, my evening is blocked out kind of religiously because that is movie night with the kids. So every Friday we will sit and watch a movie, and that's kind of sacred time, but it's in my calendar, just like the cooking is in my calendar. I plan like this is the time when I'm cooking the food and the time I'm eating, not necessarily, but you know, I've got like an hour and a half blocked out every night. That's my cooking time, because if I had back-to-back tasks, when am I going to cook? And in the summer when it was hanging out the washing, especially when there's a load of fucking socks, that pisses me off.
It takes like double the time.
All the pegs and all the socks.
Yeah,
I know. So I put time in my calendar, because that's so the way that I do it is anything that takes me 15 minutes or longer, it has a time frame. Anything less than 15 minutes, I will either bunch it up or I just get it done. And then the other thing is, people say to me, well, what about during the week when I'm doing something and then I remember something I didn't have on my list? I'm like, so then all we need to do is either like prioritize the urgency. Can I do it now? Is it quick enough to do it? Can I diarize it? So, okay, it needs to be done by Friday. So I'll maybe shuffle something around on Thursday and I'll put it in 2:00 on Thursday. Or can I delegate it? Do I give it to someone else? And what I've sort of got into the habit of doing, although I've been doing this for quite a while now, so I don't even need to do that list. But when I first started learning how to manage my time and manage my mind around the time I had, is I would have on my notes, I would just have one note that said to do. And every time something popped into my head, I would add it onto that note. And then on Monday, when I came to my planning hour, that's what I would put in my planning.
Okay.
So there are ways around all of it. And I'm... People do argue this. Like, yeah, but what about, or you don't understand my job. But my husband uses this process, and he works for the police in the child protection unit. So when his phone rings, it is life impactful. And so he is able to manage his time and get so much more shit done. So it's more around how we talk about time and how we choose to spend our time rather than time. We can't manage time. We can't actually create more of it. We have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and that's one thing I like to think about is actually we all have the same amount of time.
Yeah.
We all have 24 hours a day.
With children, though, it's less controlled. As in, like, your time is suddenly, like, if they're around, it's like, well, my time is...
It's not
it's not your own necessarily. They control it a bit more than you. Yeah. So I don't ever plan certain things, like, things with them, because it's just, if I get it done, great.
Yeah.
But, like, things like if I change the beds when they're not around because it's done, and then I can do it. But if they're around, they're playing happily, and I can quickly change a bed, then I'll get that task done then.
Yes.
It's very much like, and then I've freed up a bit of time on the Monday where I normally change all the beds.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like, I do, my one thing with time is that, and the struggle I found with having children is that suddenly time is not yours anymore. It's like, and I think that's the thing where, you know, where it's like you've gone from having a life where, you know, you were in control of your time. I know it'll come back. It'll be easier. But when they're
especially
so small,
with young children,
it was like something you could do anything in your time, and your choices where you could leave the house after 5:00. You know, whereas when I get home with the kids and I am in the house, everything I do, I know it's up to them when they're going to go to bed, really, because I have no control over that. So when I can't plan anything in those times. It's just when I get the opportunity to do it, I suppose. And I suppose it's taking advantage of those opportunities when I feel good enough to do it.
Yeah, and I don't always think we're going to necessarily feel good enough to do stuff all the time. You know, a lot of the time we think we need to feel good or motivated in order to get something done. But sometimes the reality is, do you know what? I feel really fucking shit, but this needs to be done, so I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
We don't have to add the extra drama on top. And it can be more challenging with kids, can't it? Because, you know, there are little time management that maybe doesn't agree with their little time management, and they're going to do whatever they want. But you always get to decide how you then want to experience that scenario. So I don't necessarily think it's helpful for your feeling to then blame time, or it's just the circumstance as it is at the moment, and that's okay.
If I plan something in and they're around and I don't get to do it, it's on my back of my mind, I'm not present with them. Yes. So there's no point me planning anything or thinking I'm going to get stuff done then, because it's not fair on them for me to be like holding them against things when it's not their fault. Yeah, that's my point. It's like, it's not that
you'd rather like lower the expectations, so you can actually be more spontaneous.
When so when I have George and when I used to have them both on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and obviously have them on the weekend, no jobs in my head are going to get done. And they get done on the days they're not there, because if I have things to do like washing or change the beds or things like that, it's on my mind and I'm not present with them. And I'm, you know, and I know that about myself, so I have to be really careful and catch that. It's not
and I don't think that's just you. I think that's all of us. So many of us with parents, and we're with our kids, and whilst we're with our kids, we're thinking, oh, I've got to do the washing. Oh, I didn't do that report. Oh, damn, I didn't send that email. Or oh, I should be doing this. Or I should. So we're never present, which is why. What you could do, I'm not saying you should, but what you could do is those hours that you know are more challenging, don't even plan in anything. Just be like, that is purely my time with my children. That's what I'm choosing to do in that time. So then and have that in your calendar, so that then when your brain goes to, oh yeah, I should be, you're like, no. This is exactly what I've planned to do. If they're happy and I get a bonus, brilliant. But that's not what I should be doing. What I should be doing right now is being with my children. And I don't need to be doing anything else. It'll get done, because it always does. And there's always constant washing, and there's always constant beds to be changed. And it's never stopping.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. So, but you can choose if you're like, right, between, I don't know, what age are your kids?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. So are they at school?
Edie's just started school, yeah.
Okay. So, right. So if you were to say to yourself, right, between 5 or 3, when you pick them up, and 8 o'clock, I don't plan anything. I cook tea. That's all I plan to do in that time, because that is the time I want to be fully present with my kids. Plan that in.
Yeah.
Don't plan to do anything
That's
else.
kind of your the free time, although it's not free time as in you're doing exercise or self-care.
Yeah.
But it's like planned in family time.
Yeah,
nothing else productive is expected to happen.
Yeah. And it's so important, like that. Even if we just gave our kids, I don't necessarily think it's time with our kids. I mean, time is important, but it's more the presence that we're with them. Like if you're with your kids for a couple of hours and your mind's all off over the place, that isn't valuable time. Whereas if you're with your kids for like half an hour, and that half an hour you're purely focused on them, that is so much more valuable than a gift for yourself as well as them that you can give them. So it's only the shoulding that ever stops us really being present in any moment. And all we ever have is now. Like all we ever have is now. So you get to kind of think to the future and go, right, okay, well, how do I want to look back on my time? Do I want to look back and say, oh yeah, I got my bed sheets made, and I did all the washing and there wasn't any ironing and all that bollocks? Or do you want to go, and if that's what you do, I said bollocks, but if that's what you do, then that's fine too. I'm not saying that, I'm not judging anyone for that. But you do get to choose. Do you want to look back and go, I spent really good quality time with my kids? Like that's always a choice that you get to make.
I'm interested. So I looked a little bit on your website, and on the About You section, you have a bit about your background. What could you kind of say? What got you into this whole area of coaching people? What were the things you struggled with back in the day, perhaps, and then what was your journey like?
Yeah. So when I first discovered life coaching and I went through my certification, The certification itself covered a whole range of topics. So weight loss, relationships, time management was one of them, money mindset was one of them. But I do class myself as a doer. I do actually like getting stuff done. And so there's something about, I kind of geek out when someone goes like, I've got this project, I'm overwhelmed and I've got and I'm like, right, let's get your calendar up, let's break it down. I kind of love doing that process. And then looking at the emotions and the mindset that needs to fuel that process. So we're doing it from passion rather than from pain, basically. Because I really believe we could work for hours and hours and hours if we're fueled by passion. But when we're fueled by obligation or resentment or pain, it's miserable. So there is something about time management in particular that kind of lights me up a little bit. But I think for me, I didn't really have boundaries. I didn't really have a huge amount of self-love. And I would just kind of strop through doing the housework and the cooking, and I was just really miserable doing it. And then when you're miserable, you're snapping at your kids and you're just not showing up as the best self. You don't want to listen to anybody, you're resentful, and it's just horrible. So when I started to first of all realize that the bullshit that I hear in my head is literally bullshit, so I don't have enough time, I should be doing this, it's challenging, it's hard, all the thoughts, I was like, okay, well, if I were willing to disbelieve those, how differently would I feel? And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I actually feel a lot calmer. And then it's like, well, no one else is going to love me until I love myself. And I knew my husband loved me. I knew my boys loved me, but I never created it for myself. I always used to think I was useless. I was pathetic. Everything I did. See, there's another example of how you're not clever enough. See, look at you now crying. Aren't you pathetic? And just really judging myself for not wanting to be this beautiful earth loving stay-at-home mum, which I thought I was always going to want to be. And it turns out I like going to work. I like doing stuff. So I had a lot of kind of confliction in my head about this image that I thought a mum should be versus what I was being. And I think I just got to the point, I was like, do you know what? I do actually. So earlier, Yolanthe, you said I have to do social media. Yeah. So I used to say I have to cook a healthy meal for my children. I have to tidy up. I have to make sure things are clean. I have to. And that just feels rubbish. Whereas actually when I started to realize, actually I want to cook a healthy meal for my children. That is actually what I want to do. I actually want to pick up all their socks because I like it when it's tidy. So are there days when I encourage them to do it? Yes. Are there days I'm like, right, that's it, everybody tidy, this isn't good enough? Yes, I do. But there are other days when I'm just like, do you know what? I'm going to do it because I'm doing it now for me. I'm not doing it for them. This is for me because I like to have a tidy house. So shifting the I have to I want to, I think is a game changer. And when we actually look beneath all the shoulds and the have tos, there is actually a want. I do actually want to cook a healthy meal for my children. Am I motivated? No, but I don't have to huff and puff and be miserable through that hour. I can just be like, right, I'm going to cook. This is what I'm cooking tonight. Off we go, with no emotion at all. Actually, it doesn't have to be false positive. And it also doesn't have to be miserable. It can just be this happy kind of neutral space. And I think we can apply that to everything if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But it is kind of looking at that I have to versus I want to. So
yeah, because if it's genuinely something you don't want to,
then
you need to do something about it.
Yes.
And say no or change things. But actually it's often something that you probably do want to do a little bit. And even if you mention it as I have to, that changes your feeling around it.
I think the have to comes in from the overwhelm, doesn't it? It's all the self-fulfilling, like it's that I'm so overwhelmed. Oh no, I have to do this on top of my huge to-do list. I have to then make my children a healthy meal, when actually you always are going to do that because you want to do it. It's part of the I'm going to plug this in. This I have no time. Everything's so busy. I have to do all this stuff.
Yeah,
when actually,
You don't have to. I realized at one point that I really believed that I should be a very loving stay-at-home mum. I should want to play with my kids for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I should want to have sex with my husband 24/7. I should want to cook 24/7. I should want to clean. I should want to, be an amazing businesswoman. I should want to service my clients. I really believed I should be able to do this all of it, 24 hours a day. And it wasn't until I sat there and went, how exactly is any human going to do that? So when you're willing to drop your expectations on what you expect of yourself and what you expect of other people, then you get to do things because you want to. And it's just such a calmer, nicer life to be in, really. But it does have to start with, it doesn't have to, but you might want it to start with your thought processes and the terminology at how you're describing things.
Yeah, even just key. Internally, not to other people, but how you say it to yourself.
That's so hard to catch, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's really to be like, oh, did I just say that? Because it's just part of ingrained of who. Yeah. But it is catching those small moments when you can.
Yeah.
And people, I think I've recently heard someone say, try to switch the I have to for I get to.
Yeah, that's a good one. I
used to teach a class about a 45-minute drive away, an exercise class, and I've actually just had the very last one. I was doing it weekly for a long time, but then the drive was just too much, so I switched it to once a month for the last 5 months, and I've just had the last one. Yeah. It helps that it's just before having a baby, so it's quite a good last kind of opportunity. Yeah. But I was not really wanting to do all the driving, and then I thought to myself, I was remembering what someone said, and I said, okay, I get to sit in a car for this long and listen to lots of podcasts while I make this long journey. Even if there's like really bad traffic, I get to just sit and listen without, my toddler there. Yeah. So I was just like, and that actually made me really, although I was initially not wanting to do the long journey, I really enjoyed it because I was like, you know what? I'm just driving.
That's really good because beforehand it was like that 45 minutes I could get so much other stuff done, but actually just sitting in it and reframing it, it's really good.
I was resenting it before, like, it's such a waste of my time. I'm so busy.
Like driving minimum.
Yeah, and now I'm like, I got to listen to big long podcasts that I wanted to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is the key with any kind of mind management, is we really think that dialogue that we have in our head is just us telling people the news, or we're stating the facts. But there is something really powerful about talking it through and talking out loud, and someone going, well, that's not actually true. It does sometimes take someone outside of you to point that out. I mean, it might piss you off if it goes against one of your beliefs, but that's okay too. But it is that awareness. It is kind of building that, looking at the dialogue. And it usually is after the event and going, hang on a minute, that didn't, if we go back to an evening with your kids, for example, like you get to look back and reflect. And I would always do this from compassion, right? This is never another reason to beat yourself up, ever, 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 which is where the sort of the self-confidence and that kind of relationship with yourself comes in. And just be willing to go, right, okay, what was I thinking? What was I telling myself? What was I hearing internally? And how was I feeling? And so, well, of course, when I was feeling like overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, of course I was going to snap. Of course I was going to lash out, or whatever the behavior is. But the more you kind of reflect on that or talk to someone about it, which is why I think everybody should have a life coach, but the more you kind of reflect on it and talk about it, the more awareness you get. And then with that awareness, you get to change it, because we can't change what we don't know. So it is about acknowledging that part of us is there, and those expectations are there, and those, shoulds are there. Accepting that, like, people pleasing is just a protective mechanism that we had back in our caveman days. But I do get to say no to people. Like, none of this is actually life threatening. If anything, it's incredibly life enhancing, because you now get to have, you get to experience your life in a way that you want to experience it.
Yeah, you get to do either the self-care or the exercise that you need, or spend the time with your family or other loved ones that you
I'm laughing because you've already said something that you said there. You're going to say something people don't like, and you already said something. I'm like, no.
Yes, I know. Tell me, what was it? You're like, ooh.
When you said, when I like after the kids have gone to bed, and I've got to do this, and this, and you went, yeah, but you just don't do it with the drama, and I was like, I don't do it with drama, but then I actually do. I actually do it with drama. I was like, I don't do it with drama just because I have to do it. I'm not a drama.
You love a bit of drama.
It's like, but that's put the drama on it. I'm like, I don't. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So that's just really. It is. It really is. And that's just really lovely to notice, right? Is that we all have that kind of ego. And even the word ego pisses my ego off. Like instantly, I want to rough, like it properly, like get defensive. But normally the reason why we get defensive at something is because we hear it and we do actually see the truth in it. And so that's normal. Like that's really not a problem. Yeah. But now you've got that awareness. The next time you're tidying up, you could be like, okay, I can do this with the drama, or I could just choose to do it without it. Yeah. You get to choose. Like it doesn't affect anybody else how you do it, but it does affect you and your experience.
It's true because, like, at the end when I put the kids to bed, it's like 8:30. I'm tired, and I'm like, ugh. And I'm like stomping around. And it is because I'm having a little paddy to myself, basically. Yeah. But when you said it, I was like, wait, what do you mean drama? And I was like, oh yeah, I do actually make it build it up to a big thing. And I could just get on with it and be
just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with the cooking now. I'm like, right, it is actually something. And when I say I want to do it, there is a bit of a teenage behind that. Like there's a bit of, I don't want to do the cooking again. But actually I do, because that is the type of mum I want to be. So, okay, let's take a big deep breath and we'll just do the cooking without the drama.
Yep, I have that with laundry and things.
Yeah, I have it with a lot of
get it done.
House stuff. Yeah, we're just going to get it done. Yeah, and actually, especially with tidying, I'm doing it because I do actually love to have a tidy space. So I am actually doing it for me.
The outcome is worth it, isn't it? The outcome makes you feel so much better.
I think so.
Yeah, and I'm doing things in the evening. I'm doing it because for me in the morning, I'll feel so much calmer. So I am doing it for me.
Yes.
I'm doing like putting the laundry away. How much easier when all your clothes are in your wardrobe and you can just see everything.
Yes.
And you're not going to the spare room where the laundry pile is, trying to find some
trying to find it. Oh, yeah. And then it's got to be. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I don't ever wear. I always wear odd socks. Yeah. I don't ever bother pairing socks. That's a waste of time.
I like pairing. I don't
like having a pair, but normally they're not bad.
I like having a pair. I don't enjoy the actual pairing act.
I don't ever pair socks. I don't ever pair. They have to be the same kind of cotton.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't wear like a really fluffy like sock and then a really thin sock. It has to be the same kind of cotton thickness. But whether they're the same color, that doesn't. I don't spend any time doing that.
Well, this is the perfect segue. Speaking of woolly socks, I was going to ask about the looming Christmas around the corner.
Yes.
You see what I did there? With
I see. Very
socks?
Professional.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it's in your stockings. Yes.
Do you have any words of advice for our listeners? Christmas is around the corner. It's traditionally, of course, a fun time. It's loads of social stuff, but then there's loads of pressure to buy all the presents and all the things that happen. What are your words of wisdom for our listeners to have a really relaxed and enjoyable Christmas?
Yeah. So I think the biggest key is to plan ahead of time as much as possible. And there'll probably be a resistance to your brain to do this because it's going to want to put it off. It's going to want to give you all the negative thoughts about it, how stressful it's going to be. But actually, when you sit down ahead of time, you're using your prefrontal cortex. This is your higher brain where your wisdom is. And it always gives you the best advice. This is brilliant for food and alcohol, by the way, as well. But it always is going to give you your best advice. First is when you leave things to the moment, your primitive brain's going to be in charge and it does not give a shit about the consequences of it, of whatever you're about to do. So especially from a time management perspective, sitting down and going, right, okay, who do I need to buy presents for? When am I going to go shopping? So I put that in your calendar. I'm going shopping, or I'm going to sit on Amazon for this hour and I'm going to order all the stuff online, or, right, okay, now they need wrapping. So when am I going to give myself time to wrap? So I will go into my calendar and I will say, right, that Friday afternoon, everyone's at school. I put on some really cheesy Christmas Netflix film that exactly they're going to argue, they're going to hate each other, then they're going to fall in love always. And so I put that on and I allocate the time to wrap my presents. And then you just plan like, right, okay, what cooking do I want to do? When am I going to do it? When do I need to meal prep? Just break it down into really doable chunks. Put those chunks in your diary, and then practice imagining how smooth it's going to go. Practice visualizing that, okay, Gran's going to say this, it's going to piss them off, and imagine that process, and then imagine it the other, like it all happened, everybody becomes harmonious again. Like it doesn't matter what it is in your family or your traditions or whatever, but actually sitting down ahead of time and deciding ahead of time, like this is what I'm going to do, this is when I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to feel, it's like a game changer. And then actually Christmas gets to be an enjoyable process rather than oh my God, like Christmas Eve, I haven't done the wrapping, and then it's, oh my gosh.
That's always us. Yes.
Yeah. So choose a day. Yeah, choose a day beforehand where you're just going to sit down and wrap it all.
Yeah.
I don't drink, but glass of wine if you want to. Like, make it nice. It doesn't have to be miserable.
You did mention just quickly about how using your prefrontal cortex, which was the higher brain, ahead of time works really well with food and alcohol as well.
Yeah.
That's also part of Christmas. So can you quickly go into that?
Yeah. So like, okay, I'm going to my work's Christmas party. I'm going to really have and enjoy 4 cocktails, and then I'm stopping. So then you go out, you have your 4 cocktails, you stop, your body's going to, and your mind's going to tell you, no, let's have more. And you're going to go, no. Because I'm actually, what you said earlier, Katya, was thinking about your future self is what can you say yes to now that helps your future self? So, or saying no to more alcohol is actually you saying yes to a nicer next day, or no hangover. Do you know what I mean? So you can plan it out for food as well. So you can do it for drink, decide ahead of time. For food, right? And so what I like to do with my food is I'm like, right, Christmas Eve, this is everything I'm going to eat. Christmas Day, this is everything I'm going to eat. Boxing Day, this is everything I'm going to eat. And then I have it all and I enjoy it and I don't beat myself up for eating it. Whereas what a lot of us do is we eat and then overeat and then we beat ourselves up for it because we feel shit and we're hungover and all the things. So you can use your prefrontal cortex, and because it's giving you your best advice, it will know ahead of time how many chocolates you actually want to eat, how much Christmas pudding. Like, am I having 3 scoops of ice cream or am I going to have 5? Like, you can decide all of that ahead of time. And then in the moment, just like the time management, in the moment when the time comes, of course your primitive brain is going to want to eat more or drink more or do all the drama. But that's when you just acknowledge that that's what it wants to do. Take a deep breath. But actually, I've already chosen what we're doing. So I don't need to engage in that dialogue. Yeah. I don't need to engage in the drama. I don't need to engage in the overwhelm because the decision's already made. I'm just going to enjoy my 5 cocktails, or I'm going to enjoy my, Christmas pudding with 3 scoops of ice cream, or I'm going to enjoy my handful of quality streaks. Like, whatever it is, when you plan it ahead of time, and I would always say to write it down as well, because then it's harder to argue with yourself.
Yeah. But that's quite a lot of meticulous planning. Kind of, if you go itemizing.
I think I can see what you mean there, because I'm thinking now, like, if I think to myself, right, okay, on Christmas Day, yes, you can have like all the strawberry creams in the tub, but then just stop. Like, you don't need to have the orange ones too.
Yes.
Like,
okay.
So I can see it in like,
exactly.
not if I have to write down, I'm going to have 5.
Yes.
But you can have as many of the strawberry, like, but let's stop it there. You don't need all the other stuff because you don't actually like them. Like,
yes.
that kind of thing.
Exactly that. Yeah, you can tweak it, but that's, exactly. Yeah. You're just deciding ahead of time. Yeah. This is what I'm going to, I am quite meticulous in sort of my planning, but it could be as simple as, I'm going to have, or I'm not going to plan anything and I'm then not going to beat myself up for the hangover or the weight gain.
No, you're going to eat what you want to eat, whatever takes over.
Yeah, this particular day is a free-for-all and I'm not going to feel guilty about it because it's one day.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So there's two ways of approaching it, but deciding that ahead of time, that's where your control lies. That's where your best advice is going to come from versus trying to make that decision in the moment. It doesn't, it's not so easy.
The whole prefrontal cortex thing and deciding ahead of time, it works very much with early morning exercise.
Yeah.
Because in the moment when you wake up in the morning, your body is always going, I really want to stay in bed. And if you then leave your decision for the morning, it's always going to choose to stay in bed. If you have the opportunity, if you don't have kids waking you up.
You literally have to have your stuff there, laid out, glaringly obvious at you.
Decided, the night, decided already before, this is the plan, this is going to happen. I've told someone I'm going to be there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Telling someone, yeah.
So I feel like the higher brain for early morning exercise.
Yeah,
is
absolutely
important.
Yeah. And I'm not perfect at this. Like, I haven't quite figured out the early mornings yet. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not, like, I love my bed so much. So much. I know. And I don't have like elbows and knees waking me up like toddlers love to do. But I think on that note, what's also really important is it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I call it B minus. So done is better than perfect. So if you have perfective tendency, and it might be that you're going to exercise, but actually you're going to commit wholeheartedly to doing 10 minutes, and you're definitely going to commit to 10 minutes. If you do 20, bonus because you're enjoying it, great. But you're just going to do 10 minutes, and you can apply that to any area of life. Actually, you can just start, and it doesn't have to, like, we can't be 100% perfect in doing our thought work and our emotional management all of, like, 100% of the time. That is not the goal. But to be trying to be in control and conscious even 85% of the time or 75% of the time would make a significant difference. So this isn't about being 100% on it. It's about just learning how to be just a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Or, okay, let's look at getting that one task that I've been putting off for the last 3 weeks done today. Okay, let's just, just taking those little steps forward is what helps.
Brilliant.
That's good advice.
I think we had many guests on that say the importance of not reaching for perfection.
Yes. And knowing that you will slip and it's fine.
And you're going and you're going to drama, and that's fine. And do you know what I mean? It doesn't have, we don't have to be, but the more that we're aware of it, and the more that we can then be more deliberate about it if that's not quite how we want to show up.
I'm aware that we've been chatting for a very long time.
I hadn't realised.
So we have a few maybe closing questions, and we can start with one of Katya's favourite questions.
Yes, you recommended some great books last time. You recommended loads, and it was really good. I think I bought one, the Mindset, Carol Dweck, you recommended, and I'm still reading that one. I was like, I'm not in a fixed mindset where I am.
You've really turned that around. Since episode 5. You're so much more growth mindset.
Yeah, that's a brilliant one.
Yeah, so have you got any more that you've read in the last year or so or any more that you'd like to add to the list?
Yes, so The Gap in the Gain is brilliant. If you're on a long drive, and that's a really good one to listen to on Audible, because in between each chapter is Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Ben interviews Dan, and it's only on the Audible version. It's not in the book. Oh. So that's brilliant. And it's basically all about how, as human nature, we're all looking at where we're not. We're looking at how far we've still got to go. But when we never get there, there's always something. Whereas when we look at, and that's being in the gap, when we look back at where we've come and how much we've achieved, that's looking at the gain. And that's so much more of a fuel to move you forward. So that's a really brilliant one. What else have I read that I've thought has been brilliant? Well, I did quite enjoy The Miracle Morning, but I haven't quite gotten around to actually implementing it. I have lots of
about getting up early, and
that's getting up and the benefits of, like, exercise. So there's like 6 things that he says to do in the morning, and it's like exercise, self-reflection, journaling, reading. I can't remember, but he just says 10. He just nice but he says just try and do an hour, and just like. But anyway, it's like 10 minutes of each. I haven't quite gotten it, but that's a good book to read. What else have I read? I've read. Oh, this is completely not a self-development book at all, but I found fascinating Britney Spears' autobiography.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh! I picked that up in the terminal on the way out on holiday, and I had no idea how enslaved she was in her life. It is incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah, so that was a really brilliant read. Not at all self-development, but well, I suppose, it does help kind of boost your...
we're all about non-self-development as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And all books are development in some way.
All books are interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, 3 recommendations is great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Because I could go. I read lots of books, so I could go on.
Well, next time you're on, you can recommend some more.
Yeah.
So just quickly, how can our listeners find you, and how can they work with you if they want to?
Yeah. So Instagram, I'm probably most active on Instagram, LinkedIn. So Nicky Bevan _life coach on Instagram, Nicky Bevan on LinkedIn. I have a podcast, which is the Working Mums podcast with Nicky Bevan. So they can come and learn from me there. If they go to my website, they can sign up, which is nickybevan.com. They can sign up I've actually got a free lesson and workbook all about time management, so they can sign up for that. I can send you the links to this afterwards.
Oh yeah,
but I think or YouTube, they can see I've got loads of stuff on YouTube, so, and it's all Nicky Bevan.
Great. Well, we'll get all the links in the show notes. Perfect.
Yeah, but I think Instagram's probably my favorite place to hang out. I like being on Instagram.
And if our listeners are interested to get to work with you a bit more one-to-one, do you work online?
Yeah. So I see my clients via Zoom. We do it weekly, an hour or up to an hour at a time that suits them. And it just, especially for working mums, I coach a lot of men as well, but I do have a passion about helping mums, because I do think, we do have a lot to overcome. Men do as well, but especially and I do think we are the biggest influence in our children's mental wealth and emotional health. And so I really believe it starts with us. If we're okay with our nervousness and our anxiety and our overwhelm, we'll be okay with our children being anxious, overwhelmed and nervous. So I have a huge passion about starting with us. And I've completely forgot what the question was. What was the question?
How people can work with you. Online.
I do it on Zoom. Yeah, I do it on Zoom 101.
Perfect.
Yeah,
nice.
one-on-one.
If our listeners feel like, that sounds interesting, they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I always do a free consultation. So we'll always have a chat beforehand to see what, to make sure that we're a good fit.
Great. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
And then finally, what does health and happiness look like to you now? Has it changed this last year?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been focused a lot more on celebrating my body rather than I never really punished wasn't the right word, but that shoulding coming back. I should exercise. I should want to exercise, and it should be really hard. And actually, I'm like, fuck that. I don't do that anymore. But I do want to look after my body, and I do want to celebrate it, because our bodies are incredible. So I do, following Yolanthe's instructions, a lot of yoga.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love cold water swimming. So that's kind of my go-to kind of, or swimming in general. I really enjoy. So I think I give myself time to actively rest now. So from a health and happiness perspective, there's some really key things that I do now out of celebration for myself rather than out of a punishing shooting.
Yeah, you give yourself a break rather than you have to work out 5 days, 6 days a week. Actually,
exactly.
Your body does need some recovery time in there too.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I'm feeling a bit precious, I'll have a bath. And so that kind of self-care is a lot higher on my priority.
Amazing. And you're able to do that because you've got the
time,
the scheduling down.
Yeah.
to a
exactly.
T.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on again.
Thank you. Yeah, I've
definitely
loved it.
learned a lot again.
Yes, absolutely. I love that it was a different focus from the first time as well.
Yes,
so it's nice. And really, it's really a good time in my life. We're about to have a baby.
Yes.
And I'm currently in kind of 2 weeks. My husband and I are running around like a headless chickens, fitting and everything before baby comes.
Yeah.
So
well, by the time this comes out, your baby will be here, won't it?
yes,
So you'll be in the thick of
I will be in the thick
feeding
of
and
up
sleepless
every hour of
nights
the night
and-
potentially.
It's like 3-week-old or something, or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah. So you'll be. Don't try and manage your time during that.
No,
give yourself permission.
Definitely not the first while. That's everything is kind of up in the air. The main priorities is sleep when I can.
Yes.
And feed the baby.
Yes.
Yeah, and have a shower, maybe.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Sleep,
wash your hair.
Have
some food.
Yeah.
So low expectations.
Yeah, but receiving help, that'd be a beautiful opportunity to receive your husband's help. I'm going to be delivering roast chickens. Yeah, exactly.
I've already asked my parents, who are very, very willing to help. I said, can you literally come round and do the washing, do the laundry?
Oh, yeah.
And they've said, yes, we'll be there.
Yes, yeah. People love helping. Yeah, it shows a trust in people. It's just as much of a gift to the other person for us to receive help as it is to us as well.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely, really going to accept this time.
Yes, yeah,
more than last time, I think.
Yeah, just plan to be with the baby, and that's it. Yeah, that's all you need to focus on.
Feed me, feed the baby.
Yes.
And try to sleep.
Yes.
Where you can.
And it doesn't last. It's all completely temporary.
Yeah, you're through it now. You know it's not forever.
Exactly.
I know. My second, that's all I said the whole way through my second baby is, this doesn't last. This doesn't last. This doesn't last.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my mindset will be very different the second time around. So, but yeah, I'll tell all the listeners when I get back to the podcast what is going on. Definitely.
I look forward to it.
But for now, thank you so much for your time. Yeah. It's quite late now, but we really appreciated you coming on.
Thank you.
And
chatting to us.
Yeah. Thank you for your wisdom.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yes, and thank you for sticking all the way to the end. As usual, we really appreciate it.
Yes, we really appreciated it, and hope you enjoyed that episode. We certainly did.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think a lot of people can listen to that and get a lot from it.
I think so. It's so relevant to my life at the moment, like unbelievably relevant.
You're nodding along.
Oh my goodness. But I shall maybe go into a little bit of that detail in the Weekly Waffle coming out on Thursday.
Yes, so we will now love you and leave you and see you on Thursday.
Yes, but always, if you have a question for our guest, so this week it was Nicky Bevan. If you have a question for her, please get in touch with us and we can ask her, and then we can always answer it on another episode. Or, of course, find Nicky's details in the show notes and ask her directly. That's also obviously fine. So for now, thank you very much.
Yes, we'll speak to you or see you on Thursday.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us on hello@healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
Or we'd love to connect with you on our Instagram, Facebook or TikTok pages.
You'll find the links to all our socials and more on our website, www.healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
And lastly, before you go, please give our podcast a rating and a review. It really helps others find us.
See you next week.
Bye.